everyone, and welcome to another new movie review. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Brandon.
Brandon and I today are going to review World War Z. This one came out last week, and we reviewed something else last week. Vince and I knocked out Monsters University, so we didn't get a chance to see it, so we're playing catch-up a little bit, but we thought we'd go ahead and see this one, just because, you know, it's zombies, it's in the fantasy realm a little, sort of, kind of, not really, and it was, honestly, it was something that I was looking forward to back when it was announced, and then got less interested in it as it went on, just because I didn't like some of the things I was hearing about it.
Right.
And I still had hopes for it, you know, even after I saw, I mean, I don't read a whole bunch of reviews before I go to movies, but, you know, you'll notice headlines and things, and a lot of people have been really down on it, and still I was hoping it might be one of those things where a lot of people didn't like it, but maybe there was something there, and, yeah.
Yeah, well, I would kind of agree with you. I had hopes when I first heard about it, but the more I saw, the less I had hopes. So I actually went to the movie with zero hopes.
Yeah,
on this one.
You know, I do my best, and I don't always manage it. I do my best to go into a movie with you know, my eyes open, but my hopes high if I can.
Right.
You know, I try, and you know, I gave it a shot, and it did not work. The whole movie doesn't work to me. What did you think of it, Brandon?
It was World War Z. That's what the Z stands for, to be quite honest with you.
So it should have had like a Z with a couple of Z's above it?
That's right. Z to the Z to the Z power. Indeed. No, this movie...
what didn't work? Why was it so boring for you?
You know, I couldn't get behind one of the characters. Like, I felt nothing for them in the long run. And to be honest with you, I'm going to just flat out say it. As you mentioned earlier to me, the main character should have died. Like, it would have made for a better storyline if the main character had been... Boop.
You mean just like within the first few minutes, or that being the end of the film?
That being kind of a concluding thing, had our hero been tragic, that would have made for a better storyline.
Yeah, and I'd love to be able to actually get into why that is, because I don't want to be one of those things where we're saying, well, it's a film about a zombie apocalypse, so your main character should die. That's... Brandon and I were both saying that because of something contextual.
Yeah.
The climax of the film, I think that the whole thing would have. I think the whole thing would have been more dramatic and more gripping had that happened, and frankly, it just would have made more sense.
It would have.
Is the thing. But yeah, I think Brad Pitt does the best he can with what he's given. I think he's fine.
I think Brad Pitt pulled off a solid performance on that note, I would agree. But I couldn't get behind the actress and the child actors. I couldn't get behind them. They seemed very distant. I didn't get to know enough about them.
Yeah, well, they're ultimately not characters, right? I mean, they're pretty much just there to give him a reason to go on. And
it's kind of the way, and we get a scene in the movie.
They're props, really.
They are, and to illustrate this point perfectly, as you just said, they're props. We get her to make a phone call in the midst of a tense situation, only to make that situation worse, and some good people died. You know,
that's true, and that was preposterous.
It was terrible.
I gotta tell you, the worst thing that you can experience in a film like this, and I don't know if other people had this experience like we did, but I think that the worst thing that can happen in a movie like this, that is a disaster picture, that is... that you know, it's got all this rising music and these tense situations, and it clearly it's a joyless film. It clearly is not at any point, and I'm not making that as a criticism.
Right.
It is that kind of a film.
Right.
Could have been okay if I'd cared about any character, not even liked them, just cared what happened to them, had enough that anybody was more than a static character. But the film clearly is taking itself very seriously.
Yes.
And wants you to take it seriously too. And there were a number of moments where our audience, and sometimes us included with them, were laughing at things that were unintentionally funny. And that hurt my feelings for the filmmakers. I felt bad about that. I was like, wow, I wonder if there were test audiences. I wonder what the test audiences, if any of them were doing that. Because, man, people
I can tell
were laughing at the zombies.
This
movie wants you to be scared of the zombies, and it's not working.
The test audiences were zombies.
All right. It really bothered me because
that bothered me too.
I walked into this not knowing if it was going to be like an interesting, like pseudo-political thriller or futuristic historical piece like the book is, and that's really the direction that it should have gone. This is a generic, by the numbers, dull zombie film. It really is. I mean, like the whole concept of World War Z, of this is the big world war that is the zombie apocalypse, it's missing from the film. It's really not there. It opens with it. It tries to kind of act like, but the thing is, there's nothing here I haven't seen before except for things that are just goofy.
Well, let me say this. There is...
And this is coming from somebody that's not a zombie fan.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to admit that right out the gate. But Brandon, was there anything in this movie that you felt like was like their stamp on zombies? Like this is the... we got this cool spin on it.
New. They brought nothing new to this.
What was the spin on it?
We got more story, more development from I Am Legend. With a cast of nil
and scarier zombies, and they were in CG in that film. Mostly.
They were scarier. I could get behind the main character. I felt for him.
And that's
I understand
and that's a film with myriad problems.
Yeah, but I mean, I enjoyed that film so much better than this one. I will say this: this movie had some semblance of a time frame, but it is nowhere near the time frame of a world war. A world war is going to be it's going to take the world, and it's going to be drawn out. The biggest semblance of a time frame that we actually get in this movie is the fact that they say that in about a week it spread everywhere. They make that reference, and they talk about where it might have started and how it spread, and within a week cities were down. Well, then we have all this traveling that Brad Pitt's character is doing, and I can't even tell you his name. I don't even remember his name.
I think is it Jerry or is it Terry? Or part of the problem was that the other guy that he talks to on the phone a lot throughout the film had too similar of a name to his.
Oh, really?
Which was
I didn't even catch that.
It kind of made it hard to remember who was who. Yeah, I hate
basically,
when films do that.
He's doing traveling. He's traveling by air, and aside from the part where they don't show us the travel time where he has to be walking, the traveling by air at most it takes you a day and a half to get across the world, and he's traveling across the world. So we're talking like this movie probably spans about 2.5 weeks, if that. This is what I got out of it, and that's just not a world war. You're going to combat...
but to be fair, Brandon, clearly, and I'm not taking up for this movie, but clearly there had been some time, there was plenty of time before that where these things were going on. It just hadn't quite spread to his town yet. And
yeah, but it was also, I think it was over, I think
was it only a week?
That was the week.
You are right about that.
That was the week.
Things are not totally wrapped up by the end of the film either. So
no.
So but you're absolutely right.
It's left open, and there's a voiceover.
Ultimately, here's the biggest issue, and I knew this going in. I was just hoping they would handle it better. This should not have been a movie about one guy who goes and figures out how to answer the problem of the zombie apocalypse. Now, I'll get more into this in just a second. Let me footnote this. Part of the reason for that is because this is one of those disaster films where the main character manages to kind of figure out the big answer to everything because the film decided that guy was going to be the main character. There's way too many coincidences of how he manages to survive stuff. That's a big thing. He's in the right place at the right time far too many times, and he's the only character in the film that pays attention, has a brain, or notices anything.
Right.
That was a big problem I had. He seems to be the only person that
besides
catches on.
Besides the guy that they killed off.
I know.
The only other guy.
Yeah, really early on. But what I was going to say is this guy seems to be the only... But that's only because he's a super genius. I mean, that's what's annoying. You got Brad Pitt because he's Brad Pitt.
From Caltech
and then you got
something.
the super genius. Yeah.
He's our best hope.
Yeah, and he had the most interesting idea in the film.
Yes.
And he gets killed, and he was the only character I was
even the best line in the film.
He was one of the only characters I was even sort of interested in, and then he's just gone.
Right.
But let me backtrack. The thing I was going to say is, World War Z is not the novel, and I've not read the whole novel, so I can't look at this very much from the perspective of of an adaptation, but because it wasn't my kind of thing, and I put it down after a few chapters. I just couldn't get into it.
Do you have it? I
do have a copy. Yeah. It was what I read was really interesting. But anyway, it's like historical accounts of a whole bunch of different people inside of World War Z. That was the premise of it. Well, from what I've heard, and I don't know if this is entirely accurate. I've not looked into this, but what I've heard people say is that JMS, J. Michael Straczynski, was hired to do a script for this. And JMS is one of my favorite writers. And JMS comes in to do a script, and he was going to make it a vignette film, which is just what it should have been.
Yeah.
It was going to be a vignette film with a number of short stories about different people dealing with the zombie apocalypse. That's what the book was. That is the closest way that you could adapt that. What they made was another star vehicle for Brad Pitt. I mean, that's all it is.
That's what they were trying to do. Yeah.
And obviously, they went around. They kind of went around on JMS, and they brought in 3 other writers. One of which was Damon Lindelof, and you can't tell. Lindelof's another writer I like a lot. You can't tell. There's his stamp is not on this movie, especially in dialogue, because nobody says anything interesting, and few people do anything interesting, and so they lost that whole concept. And I guess they did it just because they thought that doing this would be like somehow more accessible to a general audience. But our audience was bored.
Yeah, I felt you can tell a lot too by audience reaction. And I speak mainly of most of the audience surrounding. We were unfortunate enough to sit next to a couple of people in the audience that were not. They just kept talking through the entire thing and yelling at the screen too occasionally.
Yeah, and that will affect your viewing of a film. But
it will.
Even if we hadn't had that, I still don't think I would have liked this movie.
Well, I wouldn't. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't have either. I kind of pushed that to the side as best I could and tried to focus on the film, and the film just fell flat. Just fell flat. There was nothing for me to get behind. These characters were wooden. Like you said, there was no stamp of this movie had something new to bring to the table in regards to zombies. I don't know though. Like, I want to say that those zombies weren't intentionally funny, but they're just so hilarious. I can't imagine they didn't do something like that on purpose.
Boy, that one that just kept banging her head against the wall.
Yeah,
or
the Rastafarian zombie.
They kept doing this giant close up on her face, and every time we saw her, the audience laughed. And then and then there's one that has this painful. There's this excruciatingly painfully long scene at the end. With Brad Pitt staring down one of the zombies. It's forever, and I got really tired of it because you knew where it was going to go.
Yeah, you did.
And that was the climax.
You've
of the
already
film.
figured it out.
And the problem was that zombie was funny. I kept laughing at it, and I wasn't supposed to be laughing at it. Ultimately, where I come down on this is I saw 28 Days Later. I don't need this film. That's like
I need to rewatch that.
28 Days Later did this premise better. It's not exactly the same premise, but it's close enough. I want to know why the zombies come in waves. Why do we have zombie waves?
Zombie physics, as I said in the theater. Zombie physics. No,
I'm just saying,
no explanation.
but that has nothing to do with physics.
No, it was
why
a joke.
do they? Okay, but why do they do that? Is what I'm saying. Like
That's
they're
their
supposed to
zombie
be
stamp.
yeah, and it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't.
Vince and I were talking about this before. I'm sure Vince isn't going to see this movie, but before I saw it, Vince
Don't
was like,
see it, Vince.
Vince was like, yeah, I got no interest in that movie. I don't see how that could possibly. He was like, I saw it in previews. They've got like waves of zombies, like literally like a tidal wave of zombies, just like coming down a street.
A tsunami of zombies trying to get over the wall in Israel?
Well, you had that. They were stacking on top of each other, but that made more sense than when they were coming down like a street, like a tsunami.
Yeah.
And what I didn't get was why they act in mass like that. Like maybe I missed something. I'm trying to figure this out. I don't understand, because it's almost as if they act with some sort of a collective consciousness. And I get the idea that they're like that they're like lemmings. They're all drawn to sound, so they're all going to go in the same places. But like that just didn't really make any sense to me. There was a lot of that going on. The way they cure it at the end wasn't completely lacking in sense, but it's
well. To be fair, Jay, or Captain Logan, excuse me, it wasn't a cure. It was a...
No, I know, but it doesn't matter, because we're not going to give stuff away, but I'm just saying that like, the way they solved the problem at the end...
The way they solved the problem was...
it was too easy. It's just too easy.
It was too easy, and the way they... what's the word I'm looking for? In the end, it was just too easy. It really was. And I felt it was kind of a cop-out. Not just a cop-out, but it just didn't work for this. Didn't work.
I mean, I wanted more of just a sense of like the lore and the rules of these zombies. We get some stuff. I mean, we know a number of things about them, but I wanted more. I wanted to know how human beings. How do you have both of these things simultaneously? Because we've got kind of both versions of zombies at the same time. I felt like it was like we've got the undead zombies, but we also have the affected with the virus zombies. I don't know how you have both. Like I don't like I'm just saying, am I wrong? Am I missing something? How can it be an illness that causes it, but they're also technically undead? And that's a direct quote from the film. They're technically undead.
They are technically undead.
How does that work?
Here's another thing that didn't work for me is they seem to at the beginning of the film they seem to make a point of the 11 to like 13 seconds it takes after being bitten to become the zombie.
Right.
But that's not across the whole board. We find out later that it can take days to become a zombie.
Right.
Like hours. Like that. So that really had nothing to do. Brad Pitt's character is trying to find out. There's at one point where he uses this to see whether or not so and so has been infected in his general vicinity, and then he thinks that it hasn't happened, but then he finds out later that it could be any amount of time.
So that's kind of inconsistent.
Yeah, it was very inconsistent.
But ultimately, I just couldn't get invested in anything. Not just the characters, but even the world. Like, I just wasn't interested. I spent the whole time trying to find some reason to get sucked in, and I felt like I was on the outside the entire time. I can't recommend the film. I just didn't.
I don't either.
I'm sorry, I just didn't enjoy it, I wanted to. I mean, I really did.
There was an effect in the film that I thought was pretty cool, and that was one giant explosion that had nothing to do with moving the movie forward. It was just something that he looked out the window and saw. It looked like a nuclear explosion, but he was merely looking out a window. It caused an interruption in communication for all of 5 seconds.
Yeah, if you're going to have a film where people aren't really going to act like people, because let's face it, he's treated like he's really super intelligent, but he does a number of things throughout the film that nobody would do, or that you wouldn't do if you had the kind of training he has. There's some stuff like that. It seems to me like if you're going to do this as plot-driven as it is, don't make it don't follow one character. Do the interesting thing and jump around, because we're jumping around enough with different characters that I don't care about anyway. Like show me what the different parts of the world look like affected by this, and do the whole thing. I would have done this as more like a fake documentary. I mean, like
I could have gone for
again,
that.
Looking at it in connection with what the book was. Why not try to actually adapt the source material and just saying instead of just saying, okay, so we had this thing that was really popular. It was called World War Z, and now we're going to make a generic zombie film and call it that. That's what it is.
Well, you said we're jumping around a lot on characters. Well, I would say, we're jumping to other characters, and we're seeing them every once in a while as a break in Brad Pitt's story. This really follows Brad Pitt's quest, and that's not World War Z. That's Brad Pitt's quest.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're jumping to other people that mean something in Brad Pitt's life, like who saved him out of the throngs of the zombie hordes at the beginning, because he worked for them at one point and they think he's really good at what he does, so they want him to work for him again under the guise of, we'll protect your family if you work for us, this type of thing. So we get to see the family every once in a while, and that just doesn't work. World War Z, I expected to see a World War Z.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to see Brad Pitt's quest to stop a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, the whole film. You're absolutely right. The whole film, I'm telling myself, I just know that there are more interesting things going on right now in this universe besides what I'm
right.
What I'm
we didn't
looking
even
at.
get enough zombies. Like, I don't know enough about the zombies.
Well, anyway, that's it for our review. Brandon, thanks again for joining me.
No problem.
Really appreciate it. We will see something else probably next week, hopefully.
Hopefully.
And don't know what yet, but that's the plan. And if a real zombie apocalypse ever actually comes upon us, you can be certain that it will be more interesting than the one that we just witnessed.
And you can be certain I will be holed up in the Batcave with Captain Logan.
I don't know how much protection we've got down here.
You know what? We'll find a way. We'll where there's a will, there's a way.
Everybody, thanks again for watching. As always, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Brandon.
We'll see you next time.